10 years later, I am already discerning a constitutional moment. And I want to be clear, not a moment to replace the 2010 Constitution, but one to improve on it. A moment that will right what we didn't get correct in 2010. But fundamentally, the constitutional moment that I discern, one that will bring an end to the senseless cycles of violence that we have experienced in every election cycle since 1992. And one that will deepen our democratic credentials as a country and lead to a much more inclusive society.
All right, that's the president speaking yesterday during the Madaraka Day celebrations, saying that he has discerned a constitutional moment that will bring to an end the senseless cycles of violence the country has experienced since 1992. And to help us have that conversation, we have constitutional lawyer Abdikadir Mohamed, who is a former member of parliament for Mandera Central, and also speaking to Bobby Nkangi, who is a constitutional expert. He sat in the committee of experts that gave birth to the current constitution. Good morning, gentlemen. And of course, as we begin the conversation, do you think it's that time? Of course, the constitution will be turning 10 years in August this year. Do you think it's that time that we can relook at what we have already? If I may begin with you, Bobby.
Well, we've been saying that one thing when you look at our constitution, it provides ways of it being amended, but it does not specify a period or a time when this is to be done, which means that it leaves a discretion to Kenyans to decide when they feel they have good reasons to amend the constitution, obviously to make it better. And for the past 10 years, it's not only at this moment, we've had various calls from Kenyans, from different politicians, different organizations, calling for relooking at what we gave birth to in 2010, feeling that perhaps after this period, we've had enough time to see what truly works, to see what doesn't work, to see what can be made to work better. And so this so-called constitutional moment, I think, avails itself in the Constitution, avails everyone an opportunity to discern it and to recommend it to Kenyans so that they can look at it together and see whether truly what they feel should be changed is what the body politic, the electorate, the owner of the Constitution feel to be in tandem with what any Kenyan, any person in Kenya would feel to be the moment. And I think, again, when you look at especially the 2017 elections, that moment did produce itself after the presidential elections and the impact we had following the release of the results to that election. And that's why we've been having a process, the Building Bridges initiative.
Right.
I think it's out of that moment that the process we are engaging in was given birth to. And so whether there's a moment now, there's a moment yesterday, there was a moment yesterday, and there's a moment in the future, it's really Kenyans, the entire population of Kenyans who are going to determine whether that enthusiasm, that constitutional moment does exist or not.
Honorable Abdikadir, good morning. And as we talk about this constitutional moment, if you've been able to advise the president on constitutional matters, we've been able to study the document now for 10 years. What do you think, if we are to get into that constitutional moment that we need to amend a few things, what do you think needs to be changed to achieve the goals of inclusivity?
Well, thank you, and happy Madaraka and Eid Mubarak. My view is the constitutional moment this time, if at all, is different from the birthing of the 2010 Constitution. Our earlier constitutional process was grassroots in initiated and people-driven. This constitutional moment, if at all, is President Uhuru, Prime Minister Raila-driven initiated process. It's really the BBI that the president was talking about. The BBI is a handshake between former Prime Minister Odinga and the president. Now, when they did that famous handshake, they had a 9-point MOU. Now, the issues they raised in that MOU were legitimate issues. What he talked about in terms of inclusivity, in terms of reducing the cycle of violence during elections, those are legitimate issues. Unfortunately, the BBI process and the report that resulted was really not, in my opinion, going to give an answer to those problems. So it is, as Bobby said, there is no problem with changing the Constitution. There are mechanisms within the Constitution to change the Constitution. The devil is in the detail. What exactly are you going to change to solve the problems you are saying?
Right.
If, as I suspect, it is opening up the executive at the top echelons, I don't think that would be seen as many ordinary Kenyans as solving the problem that you are looking at. So really the devil is in the detail. If these good gentlemen who have a lot of experience, who have a lot of experience in politics, in constitution making, come up with proposals that would really genuinely attack those problems we have, that would be the best thing that could have happened in the country. If it's going to be a way to manage the presidential succession, or it's a way to open up the slots for senior politicians at the top, then the jury will be out. It will really be suspect.
Right, and Honorable Abdikadir, of course, we hear, I just spoke to Senator Isaac Mora a few minutes ago, and he says that there needs to be that expansion of the executive at the top and also to have cabinet ministers coming from parliament. And these are some details that are consistent with the BBI report. So how does the president and the political class reconcile all these expectations from their side with the expectations of Mwananchi, who are basically looking just to make a livelihood and have a comfortable life moving forward?
Now, there you go. So those will be easy changes to make as far as my friends and my former colleagues in the political class is concerned. Getting cabinet back to the House would be very popular in the political circles. Opening up the executive at the top echelon so that you have more slots for deputy prime ministers and vice presidents will be popular among leaders of political parties because they see themselves sitting in those positions. They see a career move in terms of moving from a minister to a deputy prime minister or a vice president or deputy president. So those will be popular. And because they or those of us who are in the political class often drive this, it's possible to drive that through. Does that help? Does that help resolve the problems we are seeing in our political system,
right,
which is really an ethnic-based, violence-driven, winner-take-all system? No, it doesn't, in my opinion, respectfully. It will make it easier to form political coalitions.
All right.
Ultimately, it will not solve the problems of Mwananchi. All
right. I want us to speak to Bobby, if you can hear me, having challenges with his connection. But as we do so, Honorable Abdikadir, so we see several changes happening in Parliament. So as we approach President Kenyatta's constitutional moment, what do you think needs to happen? Do we amend the Constitution via parliamentary majority, or do we need to go through a referendum?
Well, the referendum question will be determined by the changes you intend to do. There are certain changes that must be done through a referendum process. There are certain changes that require parliamentary process only. The issue is, what do you wish to do? If we are interested in changing those slots Maybe you might not need to go, who knows, if you're going to change the structure. Look, ultimately, you talked about parliament, for example.
Mm-hmm.
One of the weakest links in our political system is our political parties.
Mm-hmm.
Political parties essentially are non-existent. They really are special purpose vehicles, often surrounding a particular ethnic political base. Then those ethnic bases come together and form coalitions. And they are as good as special purpose vehicles are. You use them for that one time and move on. If President Kenyatta didn't meet Jubilee, it will die. If Prime Minister Odinga is not interested anymore in ODM, it will die.
Mm-hmm.
So really, these are not institutions that are long-lasting or that have really serious ideals behind them. That's one of our problems. Institutions. Parliament is moribund as we speak now. It's essentially a rubber stamp, for lack of a better word. So really, what we must do right now is implement our constitution as was intended. Improve it by all means.
Right, and Bobby is back. So, Bobby, we're talking about whether these amendments would go through Parliament or have to go through a referendum. And I want to be specific because Article 255 of the Constitution talks about certain clauses or certain articles that would require a referendum to make changes to. It's talking about the supremacy of the Constitution, the territory of Kenya, the sovereignty of the people, national values and principles of governance referred to in Article 10. The Bill of Rights, the term of office of the President, the independence of the judiciary, the functions of Parliament, the objects, principles, and structure of devolved government, as well as the provisions of this chapter. Let me ask you, because now the members of Parliament and the Senate at the same time, we've been seeing a lot of changes. We've been seeing coalitions between KANU and the Jubilee Party. We've seen that Wiper is interested in going into that. There's sort of political consensus within Parliament. Do you think there's a possibility of amending this particular article to ensure that all these protected clauses are no longer protected? Is that something that is possible within law?
I mean, it's an article in the Constitution, which means it's amendable, but whether that is amenable to Kenyans is another thing, because it's, as you can see, the article nests those things that Kenyans felt are primary and are very important, that it's only their sovereignty and directly so exercised through a referendum that would amend that particular article. But as you were saying earlier, issues whether they will be rehabilitated through Parliament or through referendum, that will depend on, one, we've seen the BBI report one, going to be the second one, I guess, and then the bills or bill that will come out of that exercise is what is going to help us demarcate what needs to be amended through the Parliament, what needs to be amended through referendum. And again, we also need to remember that it's not everything that has to be amended on the face of the Constitution. There are many things, there are many problems, remisses that we've had as a country going through the implementation of this document that are issues that are of our own making. They're administrative, they are political, they are programmatic, they are resource induced. And so if we can plug the gap onto those issues, then we need not necessarily touch the face of the Constitution. And I think Mheshimiwa Abdikadir was speaking about implementation of the document as it is right now. And that's one question many Kenyans have been asking. If I may use the analogy of a baby, which I like using. I mean, if you have a baby and you do not take care of the baby very well, you do not feed the baby, nourish the baby well, and then this baby turns 10, and then you look at the baby and say, you know, you are very short, we need to do something to you, you know, you are not as fat as we'd like you to be. And don't look at the role you played perhaps in making to the stunted growth of that baby. And I think that's what Mheshimiwa was saying, that there are things Kenyans feel that perhaps it's in the amending of how we build our constitution, how we implement our constitution,
okay.
how we play our politics, that needs to be looked into first before we start saying it's the black and white on the constitution.
All right.
That is wrong. But again, I think this is a conversation that we've had. Maybe I should say, you know, the president in his speech yesterday, you know, quoted two great gentlemen in their books and the historiography that they did put down on the constitutional imagination of our country.
Okay.
Very beautiful books, you know, Not Yet Uhuru and Moya's Before Freedom and After. Two very beautiful books. But when you look at the themes in this book, when you look at the bigger message that is driven by these books, it boils down to one thing: fidelity of implementation of the Constitution, a culture of constitutionalism. And I think as we discuss what needs to be changed or what needs not be changed, I think these are the things Kenyans want to hear. Kenyans also want to hear from the politicians, the political class, coming out and accepting that perhaps there are things that they have also gotten wrong in the practice, in the behavior, in the manner of their politics.
Right, Bobby, allow me to bring in Honorable Abdikadir. And so how, because you said that Parliament is moribund, it's just a rubber stamping house. So how do you ensure, because in 2010, it was a clamor for a new constitution, especially from the grassroots, as you put it, by the members of the public. At such a time when the president is talking about a constitutional moment, and we know the political agenda because we've seen the musical chairs, the political musical chairs we've been seeing a few days ago, how does the Kenyan take it back to himself or to herself outside the political agenda that you're seeing now?
So, thank you. I think Bobby mentioned the president referring to two books famous. I would, what comes to my mind is another title of another book called Freedom Next Time. It's really written by a journalist who says every time people courageously fight to change the political order and glimpse freedom, it's usually taken away from them.
Right.
So really, that is the story of the fight for freedom and justice. It's continuous. It is not a destination. It's a journey. It's every time you have to, and it's never given. You have to constantly push. So our work is not done, I think. I have no doubt that the 9 points that the president and the prime minister pointed out specifically, those speak to the problems we have. I am not that confident when it comes to the BBI. I am worried that it's really about the 2022 elections, about political expediency, and about the transition. If I'm proven wrong, I would be a very happy man. And if we can unlock the issues. And really, the reason why I am not that optimistic is because the issues are not, they don't lend themselves easily to legal changes. They are more cultural. It's really about our politics. For example, the registrar of political parties is acting for the last 10 years. That's a very critical office. It's been on an acting capacity for the last 10 years. You ask yourself why. The IEBC has always been up for change in the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
The EACC has never worked properly. Those are not legal lapses. Those are cultural, political lapses that require longer term than just changing the law. So I would be very happy to see what our president and the BBI process delivers in a few months' time, in a year's time. I will be delightfully surprised if it is really going to unlock the problems we have.
Okay.
I've been in the political process and the constitution-making process for some time now. I suspect it is more to do with the politics than.
All right, and Bobby, the same question to you. So how do the Kenyans, the Wanjiku of this country, recapture this constitutional moment away from the politicians? Or is it even a possibility at such a time that we live in?
I think and the president mentioned it in his speech yesterday. We have to also place this discussion, and especially today, in the context of how SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, has affected the lives of Kenyans.
Right.
Many are really living below the threshold that they were living, which was already indignified, you see, and jobs have been lost, businesses closed, children are not in school. So there are many problems that Kenyans are delving with right now. And I think that's why throwing political issues, and especially matters constitutional change, which if the priority will not be, for instance, telling them how Article 43 that talks about issues of safe and clean drinking water, issues of affordable health services, issues to do with the nourishment, basically the things that make them human beings and Kenyans. If those are not the things that are going to be prioritized, then I don't think Kenyans are going to look at this as their constitutional moment. Because those are the things they have been grappling with, and COVID-19 has actually made those things bear heavier in their minds and hearts. And so if anyone is going to come out and say, we need to discuss a program that touches on how your lives are going to be made better in the future, I believe, and from what I've been hearing, talking to Wananchi, the few times I've been able to venture out, to go to the supermarket and other places, and people engage you, you feel that their issues are away from what the political imagination, the political structure. We, and as a student of constitutional law, I'm aware of the importance of the political system and the political structure. And good politics is a precursor, as a tool and instrument of ensuring that these other things do come into play. But again, we have to remember that when you are talking to Mwananchi about this, when you try to tell the expansion of the executive is what is going to deliver to them safe and clean drinking water, is what is going to, that their children have 3 square meals a day, that their children go to school and find teachers, that they have a roof over their heads during the day and at night, I think to find it very, very, very difficult. So we need to find a way of really balancing these two contrasts, these two issues, in a way that will be a constitutional moment for Kenyans.
All right, and finally, Honorable Abdikadir, so if the question is to review the executive and introduce Prime Minister's position and 2 other positions for DPM, and also have cabinet secretaries coming from Parliament, do you think it will require a referendum, or is something that can be enacted by a 2/3 majority in Parliament?
Well, I need to look at the actual letters of the Constitution. But if we're going to substantially change the nature of the executive, I think that would require a referendum. It would also, we also need to know how far we'll go in terms of the changes to our executive. Right now we have a presidential system where we have the executive independent and separate from Parliament. If we are going to fuse the executive and the legislature in terms of having ministers in Parliament, how far will we go? Will we have what my friend Martha Karua used to call a mongrel, which was a fused presidential and parliamentary system? Are we going to go for a fully parliamentary system? As I often say, it really doesn't matter the system we choose. You need to abide by it, and you need to have the rule of law, not rule by law.
Okay, rule of law, not ruled by law. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Honorable Abdikadir Mohamed, as well as Bobby Nkangi, for speaking to us this morning on what is now becoming Kenya's constitutional moment. Bobby says that it would appear it's the constitutional moment for the politicians, not really for Kenyans, if the agenda that you have had before is what would transpire in these moments. So we take a short break. When we return, we'll be speaking to Dr. Evans Kamuri from the Kenyatta National Hospital, and we'll be looking at the state of the war against the COVID-19 this morning.